Hello and welcome to City Beat. I'm your host Greg from the Lewiston City Library. Joining me today are Lisa Martin and Mike Simpson from the Veteran Treatment Court here in the Valley. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So what is the Veterans Treatment Court?
Okay, well, Veterans Treatment Court is one of our newest court programs that we've added to our district, and it's what they call a problem-solving court. And it's modeled off of a drug court. Drug courts have been in inception in the United States for now 25 years. So Veterans Treatment Court just came about in 2008 and in the nation. And so what has happened then in the state of Idaho is we've added 4 Veteran Treatment Court programs. The model basically was developed out of Dade County for a drug court model in about 25 years ago, because they're celebrating the 25-year anniversary for drug courts this year. And what the judge found that started this program is that instead of incarcerating people that come in with criminal charges for their addiction or for their alcohol issues, is that it would be best to provide treatment. So what he started with this model was to take felons and put them into treatment, to have a professional group of people meet, and when they meet, they discuss the cases. And so on these teams, and this is included too with our Veterans Treatment Court, is we have a team that includes a judge, prosecutor, public defender, probation officers, law enforcement, treatment, and then a coordinator. Sometimes we add to that, like in the case of Veterans Treatment Court, a liaison called a Veterans Justice Outreach Coordinator. The newest component that we have is also a mentor coordinator, and that's what Mike does, is he is our mentor coordinator. So when we meet and we staff, when we talk about these people and their cases, they've come into the program, they have pled guilty, but their charge is pending, so they have not been sentenced for their charge. We have a variety of charges. Most that we take in our program are DUIs. We see those most often. That can be both felony or misdemeanor charges. And they sign a contract, a legal contract. They are in our program for approximately 1.5 years to 2 years. And what they receive is various types of treatment. So we do an assessment. We have treatment providers provide that assessment. And then in that assessment, they're determining the various type of needs that they have. So we have some veterans that come in with PTSD, some that have various mental health issues, substance abuse issues, domestic violence. So there's a whole array of areas that we can work with them on. Our hope is that we get them back into the community, those issues are addressed, they learn coping skills, and that they can be effective and also be productive in our community. We drug and alcohol test those people that do have drug and alcohol issues. We do random testing, and their treatment it pretty much includes about 3 to 4 months, or 3 to 4 week or hours of treatment on a weekly basis over this 18-month period of time. It declines after they've received the total amount of treatment that's required. And at the end of that time, then they graduate from the program. Their charge is either going to be dismissed or reduced, depending on what their disposition agreement is at the time that they sign that contract. So we found so far in our state that Veterans Treatment Courts have been successful. We're now in a process where we're doing some research on it to see how effective these programs are. Drug courts overall have got high success rates. They're seeing recidivism rates as low as 28%. So they're finding that they're very effective. And also too, they're very cost savings. In our state, in Idaho, to incarcerate somebody in the prison system is about $22,000 a year. So we're really saving taxpayers a lot of money and reducing then having prisons being built. It kind of goes on and on in the community. It's less than money to put somebody in jail. We're not having to incarcerate them. Also too, just to kind of add to the factor of treatment, we use what we call a rewards and sanctioning, and it's a change in behaviors that we're trying to achieve to help whether it be a drug court participant or a veteran treatment court participant, change their behaviors. And so they're held accountable. They're required to attend groups. They've got to be on time for court, on time for groups. If not, they're sanctioned. Sanctioning can occur where they have to write a paper. They might, sanctioning could be as much as having to go to jail. maybe 2-3 days of jail. So we use those sanctions wisely, and we want to make sure that we're effective in what we're doing for the program.
Well, it sounds like it's definitely helping veterans, and you kind of touched on this. So how is this helping veterans right now?
Okay, so what we're seeing is that, oftentimes in the culture that the veterans come from and how they're trained is that pull yourself up by your bootstraps as it goes. And they're afraid to ask for help. It looks like it's a weakness in our society, and they're trained to go into combat. So they need to be tough. But when it comes time, and we're seeing veterans, either they're returning from combat, we're seeing that some of them are not good at being able to handle some of their PTSD issues or traumatic brain injuries. They're seeing some of those. And so that's what we're seeing, is that once they engage in treatment, then we're seeing that those kinds of issues are being resolved.
Oh, that sounds like it. Very good.
It definitely is. And right now the rate of suicides in the United States are 22 veterans a day are committing suicide. So it's very, very high. And as a community, we need to find a way to be able to address the issues that veterans are coming back with and be there for them.
And you mentioned that. So as a community member, how can the community help or become involved?
Well, we'd like to see more help in the community. Fundraisers would be very helpful. We don't have a lot of money that we're able to spend. We do have legislative dollars to help pay for treatment, but such things as we're looking at, like maybe housing. We have a number of veterans that come into our program that are homeless. They need a first month's rent and deposit. So we've got those kinds of needs there. We also have needs where we have a forum that we put on once a month, and that is where we have veterans come to our forum right after their court session, and we ask community members to volunteer in putting on a meal, which is approximately about $100, $125. We have about 40, sometimes maybe even 50 people that'll be at a forum, and there are veterans and there are mentors that will attend, and also family members. So any way that community members can help with cost on that, setting something like that up. When we get into doing some fundraisers, and if we put out a call for maybe community members to help with that, that's another way that they can help us.
Oh, that's great. And before we move on to the kind of the role of the mentor, how can people contact you to become involved in those?
They can contact my cell number, and that's 208-790-1748. And my name being Lisa Martin, that they can leave me a message and I'll return their call.
Great.
There's also on the Idaho 2nd Judicial District website, there are links to problem-solving courts and the Veterans Treatment Court, and if you click on that link, there are applications there to become a mentor, and there's a description, a brief history of Veterans Treatment Courts and the mentor role. So,
Great, and that kind of is a perfect segue. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but what are the qualifications to be a mentor for the court?
well, you have to be a veteran, and you have to be a member in good standing in the community, not on probation or parole. It's okay if you've been incarcerated before and are not on parole. Now, as a matter of fact, we want people like that who've been through the system and understand the system. If you're recovering from alcohol and drug addiction, that's also a plus because you understand that. A lot of these guys are suffering from PTSD or TBI, and they're self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. And as most people know, the number one symptom in addiction is denial. They're in denial about what's wrong with them. And so the court kind of gives as a way of we can get them into treatment, and we can kind of stop that cycle and get them started, turned around and back on a positive path. Since I've been involved, we have two guys that, they're getting promoted at work. They have their jobs, and when they were at risk of being fired when they first came into the court, now their employers liked their performance so well that they're promoting them, giving them more responsibility. We have one guy who's came in. I actually saw him in jail before the court ever started, and he's going to school now to be a counselor, and he's now a mentor in the court. So I've seen positive results. We've also had some failures, but the positive results far outweigh the failures. So.
Well, and I think you said something perfectly before too. It's always nice to have a mentor, someone in that role who's kind of been there before. It's much easier to relate to someone if you have similar experiences rather than. So I think that's great.
It's like having somebody on your side. You know, the court can be daunting, and everyone in the court team, the court system is actually a person perceives that as being in an adversarial position. Where, as a mentor, somebody that's on your side, and we also train them to be a resource for these people and their families. So if they have a question, is how can I deal with this, or how can I solve this problem? The mentor is there to help them do that, to give them the information they need to do that. We train them to do that.
So to become a mentor, you kind of mentioned some of the qualifications. What is the application process?
Well, you fill out an application, you fill out a background check authorization, and then we have an interview process. I look over the application. If I think it's has someone who has potential, and I show it to Lisa and have Lisa review it. And then if she agrees, we go ahead with it. And we have probation and parole do a background check. If they pass the background check, then we set up an interview with them, and we score them on the interview. And the interview also gives us a way to get to know the person and get to know what their assets are that we could possibly use. Because we assign, I try to assign the mentors in like background with people, but we have mentors that have a lot of experience with PTSD and have experience with the VA system and experience with Social Security, and so we use those people to help everyone in the all the participants in the court.
Well, it sounds really positive, and I know from my perspective, historically you think of veterans coming back from Vietnam, but we have veterans all the way through from probably 18. Who was the youngest people in the program? I would imagine they're pretty young as well. You don't have to be.
We have Afghanistan, Iraq, Desert Storm. We have a number of Desert Storm and Vietnam vets.
Yeah, and I think
so
that's kind of a common misconception that you have to be older to be a veteran, and you don't at all.
Well, the prosecutor who spearheaded this program, she said that you could always tell a veteran. They didn't identify themselves as veterans because they thought veterans were, the old guys with the caps on sitting around in the VFW halls. And so you'd ask them in court if they were a veteran, and they wouldn't identify themselves as a veteran, but you could always tell by the way they conducted themselves that they had some military service. So a lot of the younger guys don't identify as veterans. They don't identify with the word, basically.
And I think that's kind of unfortunate, but it is something that I see. So you go through the interview process, you get elected as a mentor. What's kind of expected from the mentor, and what are the time commitments?
Well, the participants are supposed to initiate contact with their mentors by phone twice a week, and meet once a week with them in the beginning stages. And so the mentor needs to make themselves available for that. We would like for the mentors to come to court if available, and we like for them to come to the monthly forum. And then if I can, I'm going to get them involved in other stuff. I've started a 501c3, a nonprofit, titled the Veteran Mentors Group, and because there's some of the things that community services don't provide for single men, and we're hoping that we can get some funds there so we can fill in the cracks, in some of those places. So I want the mentors, I would like it if the mentors would help me with this nonprofit also.
Well, it sounds like you're both doing a great job and some really positive works. I really appreciate it. And it's been really great having you on the show today.
Well, thank you.
And so, Lisa, Mike, it's been a pleasure. We'll have to get you on again here soon sometime. And on behalf of my guests, Lisa and Mike, and everyone else here, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time on City Beat.